Hi, Internet. Cheers. I'm drinking coffee out of a glass because I needed that much coffee this morning. So, I felt impressed this morning to make this video. And I feel like it's going to be long winded, so I'm going to try to be very poignant and not get distracted down side tangents. So I went for a little drive this morning to kind of hash out this idea, and I was wondering to myself if I had to give this talk a title. I would title this talk Prayer Unceasing, the universal gift of the mantra and the psychology of prayer. In hopes that with that title I can keep myself focused on the topic at hand. So, I want to refer back to the verse in 1 Thessalonians that says something to the effect of rejoice always, pray without ceasing. And so this is the commandment to the Christian people to pray continuously, to always be in a constant state of prayer, from my interpretation. And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about prayer and how one can pray without ceasing, because the Bible commands to pray unceasingly. So what does that mean? I take that to mean literally pray continuously in every moment. And some people may say, well, that sure is hard. That's impossible. And that depends on the form that your prayer takes. That depends on how you pray. Growing up in the church, I don't think that I was given much instruction on how to pray. The Lord's Prayer, this too is then how you should pray, our Father who art in heaven. So I was given like a one prayer, and that was really my only teaching. And then growing up by observing other people, I saw that prayer was being practiced through, like, dear God, thank you for this lovely day, and please help me achieve these things I would like to achieve, and give me a peaceful heart. And it was like a conversation that required good grammatical speech, and it seemed very logical. It feels very logical. Not to dismiss that form of prayer, because that form of prayer is very beneficial when using prayer to bring down an effect from God, the universe, what have you. So I want to look into segueing into the use of mantras for prayer. I need to take a pit stop in Catholicism, mainly practiced by the hermits and monks of that tradition. And from that tradition, made popular really by Thomas Merton, we find the practice of contemplative prayer in the Christian tradition. And contemplative prayer and the idea of a mantra is the same thing. And so I guess we could just explain, what is contemplative prayer? What is the use of a mantra? What is a mantra? The word mantra comes from the East. It comes from the Hindu religion. You could say this is birthplace. But who knows where it started, because that's just the word mantra. The actual act of mantra in contemplative prayer, and many other names, is the repetition of a name of God continuously in your mind, verbally, the constant repetition of that. And so when you look in the Eastern traditions, there's a million different mantras that are used. Same way in the Christian Bible, there's a million names for God, especially if you look in the original languages, Hebrew, Aramaic. The translation into English took 72 and many more different names of God in the original language and translated them into just like 3 in English: God, Lord, Father. But actuality, there is so many different names. So this is where the universality of mantras, contemplative prayer, meet, because it's not about what religion you may subscribe to, what your beliefs are. It's about calling on the name of God unceasingly, whatever God means to you. So I guess I could go to, well, what name of God should I use if I decide to practice this? And that name that you choose could be anything. I prefer, one of the greatest gifts I ever got was through this man, spiritual teacher named Ram Dass. And through him, I was able to come to discover and read and think about his teacher, Neem Karoli Baba, who was also called Maharaji. And Maharaji's mantra that he repeated day and night was simply the word Ram. And Ram is a name of God in the Eastern traditions, but it's not a deity. Ram means life itself. Ram means the universal creator. Ram means love. Ram means peace. And it was really advantageous for me to fall in love with that name of God because it is outside of my native tongue, English. So I don't know that language. So it was almost like taking some suggestions of how the word Ram is defined, but mainly just feeling a freedom to add meaning to that word as I saw fit. So I had to step back and ask myself, what does the creator of the universe, what does life, what does that mean to me? How can I boil that down? And those essential truths of my understanding of God, I merged with the word Ram. And plus it just sounds good to say Ram. It's very soothing, especially when you're using it in a cyclic, repetitive way. So that leads to, I guess, my final point. Maybe this video won't be as long as I thought. And this is the psychology part of mantra use, and it's the most important part. So, coffee. Why would someone want to pray unceasingly? Why would somebody want to say Ram, 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 Ram in their head over and over and over again? That seems really boring. Why would you do that? My personal opinion, take it or leave it, is that when we are commanded to pray unceasingly, you could say we're also simultaneously commanded to give up our minds in a way. And this is in all spiritual traditions. You have to sacrifice a part of yourself in order to come into communion with God, you could say. And I think, based on a lot of research and personal experience and trials and failures, that I guess you could say one way to know God is to give up your mental space. Not my mind, but thy mind. Not my will, but thy will. And by giving up your mental space, I mean giving up the stuff that goes on in your head from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. And as a watcher of that stuff, trying to be mindful of what's going on up there, it's not really a whole lot to give up, because watching the nature of my own mind, it's a worrisome, doubtful, scared little creature filled with thoughts of what's gonna happen and da 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 da. Usually pretty negative and self-doubting and self-degradizing. Because when we are trapped in that, you could say, ordinary frame of daily consciousness, we're not thinking about God. We're not yearning to connect with God, which is love, which is peace. And so by sacrificing up that small stuff and saying, well, those thoughts can't exist in the same mind as unceasing prayer. Well, maybe it can some people, but my brain's pretty simple. It can't hold too many things at once. So I can either be worried about this and that and the other, or I could fill my mental space with Ram, 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 and what that means to me. This practice, if picking up, is very rough in the beginning, because when we are trying to focus our mind, concentrate on anything in this day and age of ADD and distraction, we find that we have three names of God, and then we're gone somewhere else thinking about whatever. So it is one of the most simple spiritual practices, but also the most difficult. It requires complete devotion and discipline, which is a great characteristics to develop anyway. So, so the way that I understand how mantras benefit. So like, what's the benefit? Okay, so this is how you do it. What's the benefit? The benefit of constant prayer is the ability to be in a constant reverence and state of prayer. Prayer is like faith, almost a frame of mind, almost a certain state of consciousness, you could say. And prayer is a prayerful state is to be in a prayerful state is to be in harmony with the very force of life, is to be in harmony with life, is to be in harmony with your own life, is to be in harmony with your own mind and heart. And harmony gives birth to feelings of complete contentment, feelings of joy, of adventure, without striving, feelings that are just really good, that cannot be described in words and can only be known through practice. And one of the things you will notice if you do pick up this practice is that your small thinking, logical mind, I guess in psychology you could say your ego mind, it does not want to be still. It can only exist through movement. And so with any small amount of practice using a mantra, you will find your mind becoming still. You will find your nervous system becoming calm. And your logical mind does not know how to deal with that, so it causes a racket. And this is great because it brings up the sharpest swords that it has to stab you with all these thoughts of like, oh, like your deep rooted fears. This is, I guess, a side effect of practice is your fears, your junk is going to come up because your mind's going to throw everything at you to really try to hook you and get you worried about whatever. So if you want to face your deep rooted fears, some of which you don't even know that you possess consciously, practice prayer unceasingly, and it will come up and it'll give you an opportunity to deal with it and to understand it and to let it go. And that's the key component, is letting go into the experience of calling upon the name of God. um, it's it's not just a ram ram ram, or God God God, or what could you say, Elohim Elohim Elohim, Jehovah Jehovah Jehovah. It's not a mental thing, it's a mind heart connection. And sometimes if you can't muster up a reverent, prayerful, devoted feeling, it then work with what you have. Let it be logical. Let it be Ram, 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 Ram. And it eventually turns into a heart feeling. You start to feel at peace. You start to feel that which is God, and which God wants us as humans to experience: stillness, contentment, peace, love, acceptance. Very powerful practice in every way. I mean, even for just relaxation purposes. And if you're an atheist, then go with something that just feels bigger than you. You could say life, 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 life. And as long as you're feeling the movement down into like a feeling of that and a reverence for life. I mean, hello, we should. Who doesn't have a reverence for life? If you don't have a reverence for life, man, get one, because we are at its whim. We are just living in its world. So, is that everything I wanted to say? 17 minutes, okay, that's got to be everything. I hope this was beneficial to somebody. It was beneficial to me to talk out that. So thanks for listening and letting me do that. That's all. I hope you have a wonderful day filled with lots of joy and delight, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.